A man was arrested after his third bank robbery in 5 years. He got away with $2,000. The man blamed the bank for the loss of his business and his bankruptcy. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison, where he died just 1 year later. He was 91 years old. Was this a just punishment? Another man was sentenced to 50 years in prison for stealing a rack of ribs from a grocery store. Is that justice? He was carrying a knife and had been previously convicted of 4 misdemeanors and 5 felonies. Both of these men justified their actions in their own minds. And people have very different opinions about matters like these. Our views go hand in hand with our perception of truth. Our personal books of truth are built upon our observations, perspectives, and life filters. And these personal books of truth are very important because they shape who we are. But there's also another very important factor that arises from them: our perception of accountability or personal responsibility. I'm Dr. Rich Masek, the author of Ideolatry, God is Not Your Problem. And today we will discuss personal responsibility and the first deception. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for us to accept personal responsibility. Deflection of personal responsibility has been pervasive in society from the beginning of time. Perhaps that's why relativism has gained popularity. Relativism means that there are no standards by which to compare or evaluate. It implies that the rules and truth change according to the situation. So how can someone be held accountable for their actions if truth continuously evolves? In this philosophy, personal responsibility is a non-issue. However, this kind of ambiguity is not a characteristic of the God of the Bible. He actually holds us accountable, and humans don't like that. Accountability is found in the law that God provided to Moses in Exodus chapters 19 to 23, which is partially described in the 10 Commandments. However, God's requirement for accountability began long before the law and the 10 Commandments. We see the first 2 acts of man's disobedience, for which he was held accountable, in the beginning of the book of Genesis. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 8 through 9, God makes it a point to draw Adam's attention to 2 particular trees, as the narrative explains. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 through 17, the narrative describes God's directions that involve the trees. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Consider God's instructions to Adam. He specifically stated that the entire garden was available to him except one particular tree. He carefully stated that if they ate of the tree, they would die. There is no relativism in God's statement. It is absolute. The personal responsibility of man was first established here. We then see that a snare was laid by the serpent to accomplish his deception or con. The word con is a shortened form of the word confidence. The goal of a con is to deceive someone into doing something that they would not otherwise do. This is accomplished by gaining the person's trust and then setting a trap. In order for a con to be successful, a certain amount of truth must be mixed with a lie or deception to develop the victim's confidence. When the victim accepts the lie as the truth, the trap is sprung. Eve put her trust in the baited lie, and the trap was set. The execution of the deception is described in Genesis chapter 3, verses 4 through 6, as the narrative continues. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. The deception was the ultimate con job. We know what happened next, and as they say, the rest is history. But there is more to this story. I invite you to read Ideolatry to further explore the concepts of accountability, personal responsibility, deception, and the ultimate con. Check it out at ideolatry.com, where you can read my blog and download the free chapter. And please, join me for Setting the Trap, in which we will dig deeper to break down this ultimate con job and see what made it work.